What's up, guys? Welcome to day 21 as we dive into the Job's second friend's response to why he thinks Job is suffering. Yeah, it's interesting how I realized that the concerns that Job's friends bring up, right or wrong theology, as a matter of fact, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, but it just feels like I've heard of people express these kinds of theology with not just with me, but with the world. It's like for Eliphaz, he thinks the reason why Job is suffering is because he must have done something wrong for God to bring punishment to him. He thinks that God punishes all those who have sinned. And in some aspects of it, I agree with that, but in other ways, I disagree with it, because I feel like not everything that bad happens to you, God caused. It's just consequences. The consequences of our actions. They could either be big or small, but they will affect people. It could affect you personally, a group of people, your friends. It does have an impact. But yeah, for Eliphaz to say that the reason why bad things happen to you is because God has bring his wrath upon the people who sin. It's like, I don't think that's fully accurate, but he's not fully wrong either. Because if we look at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, they have sinned so much that God did actually punish them by destroying their cities. So yeah, and then not only that, Eliphaz has this philosophy about how we humans are born to be evil, that we are born to sin against each other and sin against God. And I don't think that's the case. I don't believe that. I think we are all made pure in the beginning, but as we grow up, we start to adopt into our society. And the thing is, our society is so corrupt that whatever we see, we act like the people around us. So we think it's okay, which is no, it's not okay. Some of the stuff that we do and say are not okay. So yeah, it's just interesting how this story the thing about the book of Job is we are not sure if Job is a real person. I don't think there's proof of Job's existence. But yeah, it's just interesting how even if it did exist, it existed a long time ago. And for them to bring up these issues, these concerns, helps me to realize that we modern time people have those same exact questions, which is for me, it just makes me think well, at least some of the human characteristics hasn't changed yet. So, but yeah, I'll just shut up and let's get into today's sermon stuff. I hate saying the word sermon. I'm not preaching. I'm just sharing my thoughts. So yeah, okay. So we will again diving into Job's second friend's response, whose name is Eliphaz, in Job's chapter 8. So then, not Eliphaz, it's Bildad, my bad, Bildad. Then Bildad the Shuhite replied to Job, "How long will you go on like this? You sound like a blustering wind. Does God twist justice? Does the Almighty twist what is right? Your children must have sinned against him, so their punishment was well deserved. But if you pray to God and seek the favor of the Almighty, and if you are pure and live with integrity, he will surely rise up and restore your happy home. And though you started with little, you will end with much. Just as the previous generation, pay attention to the experience of our ancestors, for we were born but yesterday and know nothing. Our days on earth are as fleeting as a shadow. But those who came before us will teach you. They will teach you the wisdom of old. Can Cypress reeds grow tall without a marsh? Can marsh grass flourish without water? While they are still flowering, not ready to be cut, they begin to wither more quickly than grass. The same happens to all who forget God. The hopes of the godless evaporate. Their confidence hangs by a thread. They are leaning on a spider's web. They cling to their home for security, but it won't last. They try to hold it tight, but it will not endure. The godless seem like a lush plant growing in the sunshine, its branches spreading across the garden, its roots grow down through a pile of stones. It takes hold on a bed of rocks, but when it is uprooted, it's as though it never existed. That's the end of its life. And others spring up from the earth to replace it, But look, God will not reject a person of integrity, nor will he lend a hand to the wicked. He will once again fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the home of the wicked will be destroyed. Then Job spoke again. And then also we're chapter 9 now. So chapter 9. Then Job spoke again. Yes, I know all of this is true in principle, but how can a person be declared innocent in God's sight? If anyone wanted to take God to court, would it be possible to answer him even once in 1,000 times? For God is so wise and so mighty. Who has ever challenged him successfully? Without warning, he moves the mountains, overturning them in his anger. He shakes the earth from its place, and its foundations tremble. If he commands it, the sun won't rise and the stars won't shine. He alone has spread out the heavens. It marches on the waves of the sea. He made all the stars, the Bear and Orion, the Pleiades, and the constellation of the southern sky. He does great things too marvelous to understand. He performs countless miracles. Yet, when he comes near, I cannot see him. When he moves by, I do not see him go. If he snatches someone in death, who can stop him? Who dares to ask, what are you doing? And God does not restrain his anger. Even the monsters of the sea are crushed beneath his feet. So who am I that I should try to answer God, or even reason with him? Even if I were right, I would have no defense. I can only plead for mercy. And even if I summoned him and he responded, I'm not sure he would listen to me. For he attacks me with a storm and repeatedly wounds me without cause. He will not let me catch my breath, but fills me instead with bitter sorrows. If it's a question of strength, he's the stronger one. If it's a matter of justice, who dares to summon him?
When you write, your tone.
Who dares to summon him to court? Though I am innocent, my own mouth would pronounce me guilty. Though I am blameless, it would prove me wicked. I am innocent, but it makes no difference to me. I despise my life. Innocent or wicked, it is all the same to God. That's what I say. He destroys both the blameless and the wicked, where the plague sweeps through. He laughs at the death of an innocent. The whole earth is in the hands of the wicked, and God blinds the eyes of the judges. If he is not the only one who does it, who is? My life passes more swiftly than a runner, It flees away without a glimpse of happiness. It disappears like a swift, piperous boat, like an eagle swooping down on its prey. If I decide if I decided to forget my complaints, to put away my sad face, and be cheerful, to put away, I would still dread of the pain. Dread I would still dread all the pain. For I know For I know you will not find me innocent, O God. Whatever happens, I will be found guilty. So what's the use of trying? Even if I were to wash myself with soap and clean my hands with lye, you will plunge me into a muddy ditch, and my own filthy clothing would hate me. God is not a mortal like me, so I cannot argue with him or take him to trial. If only there were a mediator between us, someone who could bring us together. The mediator could make God stop beating me. And if I would no longer live in terror of his punishment, then I would speak to him without fear. But I cannot do that in my own strength. Chapter 10. I am disgusted with my life. Let me complain freely. My bitter soul must complain. I will say to God, don't simply condemn me. Tell me the charge you are bringing against me. What do you gain by oppressing me? Why do you reject me, the work of your own hands, while smiling on the schemes of the wicked? Are your eyes like those of a human? Do you see things only as people see them? Is your lifetime only as long as ours? Is your life so short that you must quickly probe for my guilt and search for my sin, although you know I am guiltless? Oh, I am not guilty. No one can rescue me from your hands. You formed me with your hands. You made me, yet now you completely destroy me. Remember that you made me from dust, and you will turn me back to dust so soon. Wait. Remember that you made me from dust. Will you turn me back to dust so soon? You guided my conception and formed me in the womb. You clothed me with skin and flesh, and you knit my bone and sinews together. You gave me life and showed me your unfailing love. My life was preserved by your care. Yet your real motive, your true intent, was to watch me. And if I sin, you would not forgive my guilt. If I am guilty, too bad for me. And even if I'm innocent, I can't hold my head high because I am filled with shame and misery. And if I hold my head high, you hunt me like a lion and display your awesome power against me. Again and again, you witness against me. You pour out your growing anger on me and bring fresh armies against me. Why then did you deliver me from my mother's womb? Why didn't you let me die at birth? It would be as though I had never existed, going directly from the womb to the grave. I have only a few days left, so leave me alone, that I may have a moment of comfort before I leave, never to return. For the land of darkness and utter gloom, it is a land as dark as midnight, a land of gloom and confusion where even the light is dark at midnight. As midnight. Chapter 11. Zophar is, I think, Job's third friend. Then Zophar, the Naamathite, replied to Job, shouldn't someone answer this torrent of words? Is a person proved innocent just by a lot of talking? Should I remain silent while you babble on? When you mock God, shouldn't someone make you ashamed? You claim, my beliefs are pure, and I am clean in the sight of God. If only God would speak. If only he would tell you what he thinks. If only he would tell you the secrets of wisdom. For true wisdom is not a simple matter. Listen, God is doubtless punishing you far less than you deserve. Can you solve the mysteries of God? Can you discover everything about the Almighty? Such knowledge is higher than the heavens. And who are you? It is deeper than the underworld. What do you know? It is broader than the earth and wider than the sea. If God comes and puts a person in prison or calls a court to order, who can stop him? For he knows those who are false, and he takes note of all their sins. An empty-headed person won't become wise, any more than a wild donkey can bear a human child. If only you would prepare your heart and lift your hands to him in prayer. Get rid of your sins, and leave all integrity behind you, all iniquity behind you. Then your face will be brightened with innocence. You will be strong and free of fear. You will forget your misery. It will be like water flowing away. Your life will be brighter than the noonday. Even darkness will be as bright as morning. Having hope will give you the courage. You will be protected and will rest in safety. You will lie down unafraid, and many will look to you for help. But the wicked will be blinded. They will have no escape. Their only hope is death. Woo. That was a rough one. Okay. Let's go back and go back to in the beginning. So yeah, something I've noticed with how Job interacts with his friends is that Job's friend brings up an issue, brings up why they think that he's getting punished. I don't know if it's just I don't know if it's just me, or does it feel like from their standpoint to Job's response, which is like talking about God again. It's like yeah, he talks a lot about God, and then he talks to God. Why is it he has to talk about God? Why is that when his friends make an accusation against him, why is it he just goes straight to God and talk to God? Why does he have to reflect almost in a sense reflect on why he thinks God does these things, and then finally decides to talk to him? That's just something I've noticed. But yeah, let's actually go back to kind of see what they have said. Okay, this is an issue for me. In Job chapter 8, verse 4, when it says, your child must have sinned against him, so their punishment was well deserved. You make it sound like, so if his sons did suffer, why do you need to bring that up? Why does Bildad have to bring up the issue of his children? If his children sinned against God, their punishment was well deserved. It's like, what's the point of bringing up Job's children? It's not about their children that we're talking about in the book of Job. We're talking about Job, him. And so it doesn't make any sense for me to hear them compare Job to his kids, or like, unless they're saying like, I felt like another response could have been like, because the reason why they brought up Job's children is because they think that because Job's sons Because if they think that Job's kids has sinned against God, that not only did their kids suffer, but also Job gets to suffer as well. It's like if you think of if that's how they approach it, like given that is wrong, because I feel like God punishes people individually for their individual actions, not based on their relative, not based on the actions of their family members or their friends that they're being punished. You know what I'm saying? It's like I feel like God serves justice to everyone in accordance to what his standard of righteousness is, or how he sees somebody should be punished. But I just don't think that God punishes people based off of the actions of others. I think that's so. Yeah, I'm a little confused as to why Bildad needs to bring up Job's kids. But yeah, verse 3 of chapter 8, when it says, does God twist justice? Does the Almighty twist what is right? I don't know. It just reminded me of something. It's like we have to realize that our view of justice is obviously different from God. Because if we think God has the same kind of justice, thinks the same way as us about justice, right, then a lot of people who have been guilty of crimes, they'll be like put in prison, die probably. And the thing's like, and for us to believe that God is just, even if it means somebody dies, right? Somebody gets murdered, but that murderer gets to keep living. It's like we have to understand that our standard of just is different from God, and that we cannot put our impressions of what just is onto God, making God look like the unfair the God that he is. We have to trust that God knows what he's doing, that we have to trust that he is justice. We just have to be patient to say, okay, God, I'm gonna be, even though I don't understand why a murderer gets to live on while the innocent dies. I don't understand that, but I trust that you will serve justice to the murderer and to the victims, that even though I don't understand, I still trust that you will carry out those things. I feel like that's just like a much better response than painting a picture of God who's unjust because we think it's unjust for a murderer to keep living while the victim dies. You know what I'm saying? So do not project. So just be careful that we don't project our sense of what justice is onto God, because we are not God. God is not us. So yeah, that's what I have to say and stuff. I do agree with Bildad about like how he describes our lifespan being short and stuff, and that we should probably pay attention to our elders, to the people who are older than us, since they have the more life experience that we learn from them. But at the same time, don't let your elders in your life replace God. Meaning like, just because somebody's older than you, that does not mean that they have all the right answers to all the life problems. Like sometimes we have to realize that the one who does know everything, who is wise, is God. So we have to listen to God. And so if God says something that's totally different from our elders, we have to realize that we have to listen. We have to believe in what God says, not what our grandparents says or our teacher says. It's like Timothy. I feel like Timothy, it's like he's very young and he was able to become like he was able to start a church, I think. I'm not like totally familiar with his story, but yeah. Anyways, I all I know is that he's a young follower and he's like gathering churches together. And I think it was like the story of like elders within his church like criticizing him for telling him what to do because of how young he is. But like Paul basically tells Timothy that just because he's young, that does not mean that he does not get to contain wisdom. Like because the God can tell anybody something that's true, and that we have to realize that we cannot just start assuming somebody's wise based on their age, but based on how faithfully they walk with God. So at least that's how I always see it. So I guess I try to my best to respect my elders, but at the same time I set this line of saying, yes, I see you on these kinds of being able to answer these kinds of questions, but at the same time it's like I'm not gonna take your word over God's words. So if they say something that's contradictory to what the Bible says, then no offense, even if it's my grandparents, it's like no offense, but I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm gonna listen to what the Bible has to say. So yeah, okay. So that's kind of my yeah, as I was saying, it's interesting when Bildad in verse 15, he says, they cling to their home for security, but it won't last. They try to hold it tight, but it will not endure. It's like, for me, that's really interesting, because it's like, I don't know, I'm just kind of conflicted about it, because like, as we reflect on this, what is our metaphorically home? It's like, what do we cling onto that is impure, that is evil, that is sinister, or like that's something that we take a higher value over God? It's like, for me, sometimes I struggle with my phone. It's like I spend a lot more time with technology than on the Word of God, and that's an issue that I want to do a better job of like tearing down. Like I want to tear down the making technology. I want to tear down how much time I spend with my technology over the Bible, because because technology is very I don't know, like they could cause people stumble, right? They can cause people to stumble, and they can't last forever, but the Bible lasts forever, and that things that have been said in the Bible last forever. Who God is lasts forever. And so I want to cling onto something that lasts forever over something that's temporary. So as we kind of like get done with Bildad's response, as you reflect, like, what is something that you cling on that's temporary that you need to get rid of, so that you may focus on what's most important, which is God. So, oh dear. Job has gone off the rails, I feel like. I actually, it's not, he acknowledges the greatness of God, and how we little people, has no right to question God on his decisions, on his actions, which is like, yes, Job, I totally agree with you that we are like worthless without God. It's like, so we should never question. I mean, maybe not questions. Like, we should never think that we are superior than God. That's a dangerous positions to be in. Don't compare yourself to God. Just yeah. But yeah, he just keeps. I don't know, guys. I don't know. It's like, what is his obsession with it? It's like, okay, some of the stuff that he says, I feel like are like kind of demonic, because it's like I mean, maybe not demonic, but like very delusional, because he's like so focused on his pain that he cannot see God in the midst of his pain. He just sees God. I mean, he's able to see God, but not the true God that we're talking about, a God of compassion, the God of love. He can't see that. All he sees is the God of wrath. And stuff like that's something we've all fallen into. It's like, when something bad happens to us, we want to blame God for all the pain and the sufferings with our life. And this guy actually, I've heard of this guy bring up this interesting point. It's like, whenever we suffer, he notices how like people always blame God for all the wrong things or for all the sufferings that happens to them. It's like they rarely hear anybody ask the questions like, I never heard, like, he's like, he rarely hears anybody blaming Satan for the things that happen in their life. It's like, wow, that's actually really interesting. It's like, why is like we all so quick to jump to God, to complain to God about how terrible our life is and how he made us suffer. It's like, how does I always jump into the complaint of how much of a pain Satan is in our life? And so and this is very bad. I absolutely do not like this verse. Verse 22 of chapter 9, it says, innocent or wicked, it is all the same to God. What? Innocent or wicked, it is the same, it is all the same to God? The guy needs to have a serious reality check. Like, come on, what are you talking about? Yes, maybe God's love because he loves all people. Like, I mean, even that is contradictory. He loves their humans. He loves humans, but he hates their sins. I guess that's a better term to use. I don't know. But it's like, God does not view everyone the same, guys. What is he talking about when he makes that wild assumption about God seeing everybody being the same, that he destroys both the blameless and the wicked? I mean, I guess with the he destroys both the wicked and the blameless. I think when he uses the term destroy, I think he probably means death. Yes, I could see how it seems like God I understand how God seems to be a ruthless God when he let the innocents die. But you cannot tell me that God sees the innocent people being the same as the evil people. That is just, it's like basically saying how God views Jesus and Satan as the same. That's actually not bad. Because Jesus is innocent and good. I mean, even the whole term innocent is very complicated to be honest, but yeah, it's like how can you say something like, how can you say that God views good and evil being the same, innocent and wicked the same? If that's the case, are you telling me that God views Jesus the same as Satan? It's like, no. So I'm just getting so frustrated about Job's responses here. It's just so stupid. It's like God does not see everyone the same and stuff. And it just feels like Job is like such a complainer. I mean, no offense, I don't care how righteous he is, but he is such a complainer. He says in verse 25, my life passes more swiftly than a runner. It flees away without a glimpse of happiness. It's like, wait, what? You're like one of the richest families at your generation, at your time. You have everything that a man could ever ask for, and you are to tell me you never experienced happiness? At this point, Job is just creating self-pity. Self-pity for himself. Oh, this one time bad thing happens to me. Everything's bad for me. I can never experience the goodness of God anymore. I never did experience the goodness of God. It's like, guys, that's exactly what Satan is trying to tell you. When something bad happens to you, he wants you to blame everything on God. Makes God look like the bad person. It's as simple as that. I'm not gonna keep going on about it, but that's just basically what it is. Satan causes you pain, tries his best to make everything about God and how terrible of a God is, how wicked God is. and how God never blesses you in your life. It's like, if you really believe that you need a reality check, your life reality check, and you need to do some serious self-reflection check if you think that God causes nothing but misery to you your entire life. That is just sad. It's like, understand, God allowed suffering to happen. I totally understand that. And I understand that we sometimes get clouded by our pain. But to make an accusation of God never brought any sorts of happiness in your life is absurd and stupid. It's like, if that's the case, then why did God create us? Why do we call God good if God never brings happiness into your life? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And everything in the Bible says how God is a just God. God is not only just, but is a good God. Then what is good mean? Then I must be misunderstanding the word good. If God brings us nothing but pain and misery on our life, that's what I basically see. And I'm sorry for getting upset with Job, but this is probably the worst response I've ever heard of him say to God. So yeah, he thinks that God sees everyone's the same, good and wicked. He destroys all good and wicked. Yes, physically maybe. We don't always understand, but yeah, innocent people do die. I do get that. But maybe spiritually, that's a different story that we do not understand. That is not cool by Job. Then he says something that is so bad. You complain, you create self-pity party for yourself because of a time in your life where you think that God never bless you. That is just absurd. It's like, you need to reality check. Big thing. Deep reality check is what you need to do. So yeah, again, this is all about him talking about God. Where is he talking to God? I don't understand, Job. What are you trying to do? Yeah. He said, oh, God, let me complain to you about my sorrow. I think God allows us to complain. Because if he does not allow us to complain, then we'll all be dead. Because we complain constantly, to be honest. Yeah, but yeah, it's just crazy, guys. I don't know what you think about Job. He is not... I do not consider Job to be at all innocent whatsoever. I'm not saying I am innocent. I'm far from being innocent. I'm corrupt. I'm a corrupt human being. But at least I know the lines between understandable accusations about God versus just absolutely stupid ideas of stupid ideas about God. It's like how God sees everyone the same, good and evil. He destroys all good and evil. How he never brought happiness into any of our lives. It's like, yeah, Job, I can relate to you about suffering. I understand what it means to suffer. I mean, maybe not fully, but I get a dose of my suffering. But I'm not gonna make God look like the problem. I'm not gonna blame God for every single bad thing that happens in my life. I'm gonna blame it on Satan, but not God. And so yeah, I feel like Zophar's response is probably like, it's like one of my favorite responses, because it's like he took the hard posture of humbling himself before Christ, or maybe not before Christ, before God, acknowledging the magnificence of God and how God can survive without us. We cannot survive without God, but he can survive without us. And how like God is like the greatest person you can ever know and stuff. But the issue that I have with him is, you pray, we all pray, like for people who pray about God, right? I don't know. It's just hard, guys. I just feel like it's good to pray to God. It's good to pray to God about your sorrow. But do not expect, again, this is the same issues with Zophar, thinking like, oh, if I do something good, God will reward me. Or yeah, it's like this. No. Just because we pray does not mean that God will instantly solve our problems. That's not how it works, unfortunately. What I wish it happens like that, do I wish that it's like that? Yeah, of course. Of course I want something like that to happen in my life. But it's like, I realize at the same time, like, I know God will walk with me forever. But that does not mean that He will never let any sorrow happen to me. That does not mean that when I'm in trouble that God will solve the problems instantly. It takes time to heal from suffering. And so that's kind of the only critique I have of Zophar, is this idea of, as long as you pray, your life will be great. You have your life all together. So, yeah, that's kind of like what modern time people think these days too. We put God into this idea of the genie God who just does as our wish as long as we do what He asks us to do. As long as we check off certain things off our list for God to bless us. I don't think that's how God works. I mean, I know that's not how God works, but yeah, it's, guys, like I said, this is like a realistic, something we all struggle with, is we start portraying God as this terrible God when we are in trouble, when we are suffering. And it's like funny how like when we do that, we forgot that sin existed. That's why we blame it on God all the time. And I feel like Satan just tells in our ears, telling us that everything that happens in our life is because of God. God made us suffer. Instead of like turning the questions like, wait, that cannot be right, because what about Satan? Isn't he the prince of evil, the prince of death, or whatever horrific terms you want to use on him? It's like, why are we not blaming Satan for the miseries of our life? Why are we always blaming God? And so it's just, I don't know, guys. I never really actually thought I would learn this much from the Book of Job. So yeah, I'm actually kind of glad I'm able to. I'm glad that I'm able to read it and kind of really dive into the book to see why, to see myself within each of Job's friends and within Job as well. How I can see myself in each of the issue. In sometime in my lifetime, how I acted very immature to, like them. So yeah, it's a very hard book, but yeah, I'm gonna end it right now. I'm gonna end it. So yeah, that was day 21, and so may you guys all walk with God and have a good week, you guys.